Welcome to our now semi-annual Community Air Protection Program community meeting with the Mojave Desert Air Quality Management District. My name is Marshall Haprov. I'm the Public Information Officer for the Mojave Desert AQMD, and we're glad that you could join us. If you're watching this later on video, we appreciate you taking the time to learn about our Community Air Protection Program here at the Mojave Desert AQMD. We will have a presentation here shortly. If you are joining us on the live video and you have any questions throughout the presentation, please use the chat function in the Zoom app. Otherwise, we will move forward with our presentation. Just as a reminder, this is specifically for projects and potential projects occurring within our jurisdiction. You'll see on the screen that our jurisdiction covers most of the desert portion of San Bernardino County, including the cities of Hesperia, Apple Valley, Victorville, Adelanto, Barstow, Yucca Valley, 29 Palms, Needles, as well as the city of Blythe in Riverside County in the Palo Verde Valley. That portion of Riverside County is also within our jurisdiction. So this meeting is specifically for projects that could be or will be occurring within that jurisdiction. This meeting is not for any other projects conducted by or otherwise assumed by Mojave Desert AQMD. And with that, we will move forward, and I will introduce our Support Services Supervisor, Jorge Camacho, who's going to lead you through the next part of the presentation. Jorge?
Thanks, Marshall. Thanks for that introduction. Hello, everyone, and happy Wednesday. Thank you for sharing your time with us. Just to reiterate, this is our sixth community workshop meeting on Assembly Bill 617, also known as the Community Air Protection Program, which we'll also refer to as CAT for shorthand. Prior to moving along, I do want to provide some background on the legislation itself. Authored by Assemblywoman Cristina Garcia and passed by the legislature into law in 2017, the piece of legislation directed our state oversight agency, the California Air Resources Board, or CARB, to establish the Community Air Protection Program. The focus of the program is to reduce exposures in communities that are most impacted or most burdened by air pollution and cumulative exposure across the state. As part of this program, CARB also selected various communities throughout the state that will have to take further steps in support of AB 617. In the next few slides, we will address the overall goals of 617 at the state level. Then we will focus on the actions the district has completed in support of the goals of AB 617. Next slide. For 617, or the CAP program, CARB wanted to focus on community action, and they identified 6 areas that needed to be addressed. The areas were community-level air quality monitoring, community emissions reduction programs, if applicable, accelerated retrofit of pollution controls on industrial facilities, BART, enhanced emission reporting requirements, increased penalty provisions for polluters, and lastly, criterion and toxic reporting. And I'm sorry, not lastly, but the last item I forgot to address was grants to local community groups, if applicable. Next slide. Once CARB identified the 6 main areas for community action, program elements were created to address the areas. The program elements were monitoring, emissions, funding, and emission reduction programs. Within each program element, there were objectives to be achieved at the state and in some cases the local level. For example, within the monitoring element, there were directives to establish community air monitoring networks. You'll learn more about the purple air sensors later in the presentation. Within the funding element, the state provided incentive funds for eligible organizations to purchase new and cleaner engine technology. And lastly, for the emissions reduction program element, the district worked on a BARC BARCT implementation schedule for applicable facilities. BARC stands for Best Available Retrofit Control Technology, and you will learn more about that later in the presentation. Next slide. CARB further developed additional elements such as technology clearinghouse. In this element, the state and local agencies will look at additional emissions control technology for stationary, area-wide, and mobile sources. Emissions reporting. Annual reporting was created for specific facilities and the development of a uniform methodologies for reporting. And lastly, a resource center to provide organizations with best practices information as well as education information on emission and outreach tools to help support the program. The CAP guidelines provide guidance for the air districts on how to implement the program. The initial guidelines were published in 2018 and were revised in April 2024. The revision included a variety of new project categories and an update to existing project types. For example, all districts can potentially fund community greening and vegetative barrier projects. Prior to this, projects were limited to selective communities and only with community reduction plans. As the CRAP program is ever evolving, CARB and the Air Districts are working on additional guideline updates to the guidelines for this year. In addition, the CAP funding guidelines were also updated in 2024. The purpose of the funding guideline is to provide guidance for administering agencies so they design and implement their programs in a way that meets statutory requirements and advance the state's climate goals. The latest update occurred in December 2024. Lastly, in October 2023, the Community Air Protection Program Blueprint were updated. The blueprint is CARB's statewide strategy and implementation guidance to reduce harmful emissions and exposure to air pollution in communities most impacted by poor air quality. Blueprint 2.0 reflects the experience and lessons learned since the beginning of the Community Air Protection Program. As mentioned earlier, the Community Air Protection Program is still growing and evolving. CARB is continually seeking input from stakeholders on how they can improve the program or other areas to consider. This slide has a link to CARB's CAP webpage, email contact, and the ability to subscribe for updates on the program. If you have not done so, I would encourage everyone in today's meeting to visit the website. Now, I would like to introduce Mr. Alan DeSalvio, our Deputy Air Pollution Control Officer, who will tell us more about the action the district has taken in support of the program.
Thank you, Jorge. AB 617 had specific requirements that apply to 4 facilities in the Mojave Desert AQMD, and the Air District has responded and met that requirement through the adoption of a revision to Rule 1161, Portland cement kilns, which we revised in January of 2018. That rule implements best available retrofit control technology for our 4 cement kilns in compliance with AB 617. We also adopted a new rule, 1157.1, which directly implemented BART on several boilers located in the Trona area. That rule was adopted in September 23, 2019, and I'm happy to say that all 3 affected boilers are now permitted with requirements that bring them into compliance with both BART 1157.1 and AB 617. Next slide, please. The best available retrofit control technology sometimes references the term FONA. When I use FONA, what I'm referring to is the Federal Ozone Non-Attainment Area, and it's the portion of the Air District that is not currently meeting the federal or national ambient air quality standards set by US EPA for ozone. This one element, as Jorge mentioned earlier, one element of AB 617 is community monitoring. The Air District has 5 air monitoring stations that are roughly $250,000 each, but we can't afford to put one everywhere. However, we can do community monitoring with what are called community sensors. And the sensors that the Air District likes are called purple air sensors. And these nice purple, and thank you for the purple dots, Marshall, these nice purple dots indicate where the district has augmented its stationary, full-blown air monitoring sites with roughly 40 purple air sensors located throughout the district. I like this slide because it shows that we're monitoring in areas where we don't have a lot of population, but are able to put in purple air sensors, notably in the Parker Dam area, up in the State Line area, and elsewhere where there's not a lot of population, but we are doing our best to monitor the community impact. In addition, the emissions inventory has been dramatically improved by the state, and the Air District is now affected by these requirements. And so the Air District is currently asking for the most advanced and comprehensive emissions inventory request for calendar year 2024. So in response to AB 617, we're doing criteria and toxics reporting updates. We're increasing our scrutiny on regulated sources. Some of the sources aren't too happy about that. Our inventory requests are going out to more than ever these years. And we also want to point out that all the data that we gather goes to the state of California and can be accessed through their various tools and facility searches on their website, which we've linked here. It's a very powerful tool. You can get both criteria and toxics information through that tool.
Thanks, Alan, and thanks for providing updates on the action the district has taken in support of the CAP program. As I mentioned earlier as well, the CAP has a focus on community participation and gathering community feedback. The district has had several meetings with stakeholders over the past years. In previous meetings, the community supported funding zero-emission equipment when feasible, with an emphasis on clean transportation for children. And Marshall mentioned it earlier, starting in 2025, we will be moving to semi-annual meetings. One will be done in February, and the other meeting will take place in August. In addition to the outreach, the district has also created a Community Air Protection Program webpage. On this page, you can find information about our past meetings, a list of completed projects and projects that are in progress, and other documents showing the action the district has taken in support of the program. On this webpage, residents and stakeholders can complete a survey to provide feedback at any time during the year. This webpage also has our contact information if anyone has any questions, comments, or feedback. Marshall, is there anything else you would like to add about the outreach page specifically? Thanks. Next slide. One of the elements of the CAP program was incentive funding or grant funding that was provided to the Air District to fund emission-reducing projects in areas most impacted by air pollution. The Community Air Protection Program incentives are part of the California's Climate Investment, which is a statewide program that puts billions of cap-and-trade dollars to work in reducing greenhouse gas emissions, strengthening the economy, and improving public health and the environment, particularly in disadvantaged and low-income communities. The grant fund provides financial incentives to both public and private sector entities to reduce emissions by retiring and replacing older equipment with newer engine technology when possible, for example, and also prioritizing zero-emission technology and infrastructure. Next slide. Now, there is strict criteria for incentive funding. On this slide, we provide a list of some project examples, but notice that the list is not all-inclusive. Excuse me. However, we can fund on-road vehicle projects such as school bus replacements, school bus repowers, heavy, medium-heavy, and lightweight heavy-duty truck replacement, as well as emergency replacement vehicles. We also can fund off-road vehicles such as diesel or large spark ignition engines repower to zero emission, mobile equipment replacement, and retrofits for engines in general. We also provide funding for infrastructure such as zero-emission infrastructure, which includes EV charging and hydrogen fueling stations. Projects with solar/wind power systems are eligible for additional funding amounts, and public school buses, specifically when they need charging stations for the zero-emission projects. Now, as far as these programs, we also as I mentioned, there's strict criteria for incentive funding, and the projects also have to have a direct air quality benefit to disadvantaged and low-income communities to be considered. Next slide, please. Some of the projects that we have done on the path and working from community feedback, the district partnered with Northwest Pipe Company located in Adelanto. The district provided grant funding to Northwest Pipe Company to purchase 2 new Tier 4 forklifts. This was a unique process as the grantee retired and destroyed several pieces of equipment, and it was replaced with something that I mentioned earlier called Tier 4 engine technology, which is the cleanest available engine on the market that is not zero emission. Next slide. And like I mentioned again, building on community feedback from previous meetings, the district partnered with local school districts, something that we're very proud of. The school districts were the Lucerne Valley Unified School District, Apple Valley, and the Adelanto School District. For all 3 schools, the district provided funding to help purchase zero-emission all-electric school buses and also providing grant funding to purchase the charging station needed for the buses. In total, 10 buses have been replaced as of now, and just building on that same community feedback, the district also went for additional federal funding in a targeted airshed grant to replace 3 additional school buses for the Adelanto School District. Next slide. Now, we also provided funding for the charging station needed to charge the buses. Here we're showing charging stations for the Apple Valley, Unified, and Adelanto School District as well. Now, one of the main criteria for funding equipment replacement project is that the project must result in emission reductions that are quantifiable, enforceable, and permanent. How do we ensure this? In most cases, the baseline equipment is destroyed and rendered inoperable. As you can see from these pictures, these are some of the equipment that has been destroyed, so that way it's been removed from service so we can count those emission reductions. If you go to the webpage mentioned earlier that we have on our website, we also have an actual video of a school bus being destroyed that our staff witnessed. Now, I do want to talk about our current school bus replacement project. Currently, we're in an agreement with the Snowline Unified School District to replace 2 of their school buses with zero emission alternative. In addition, Lucerne Valley School District applied again for an additional zero emission school bus replacement project. And just to emphasize, the Mojave Desert Air Quality Management District is also providing the funding for supporting infrastructure needed to charge the buses. The district is also funding agricultural equipment replacement projects. These projects will have a direct air quality benefits to disadvantaged and low-income communities, therefore meeting the CAP objectives. Now, these old pieces of agricultural equipment will be replaced with Tier 4 engine technology. Now, the total of that community air protection program, we have replaced 13 buses with zero emission alternatives. We have provided funding for 3 electric vehicle infrastructures. We have provided funding for 2 industrial forklifts, and we provided funding for 4 agricultural replacement pieces of equipment for total awarded funding over $6 million. Now, to be clear, there are strict criteria for incentive funding. So even if projects are proposed, we have to make sure that eligibility criteria is met. For proposed future projects, we wish to continue our work with school districts for zero emission school bus replacement projects. We want to work with school district on zero emission lawn and garden equipment for maintenance, and also work with the school district for potential air filtration systems for classroom, their school building, and maybe even for residents as well. Now, when none of these options are available, we do want to work on replacing old diesel equipment with cleaner engine technology, similarly to the agricultural equipment replacement that I mentioned earlier. If there are no objections from our residents within our boundaries, the district can continue to fund zero emission school buses for children as well as other cleaner projects, such as replacing equipment with cleaner engine technology. Now, as I mentioned, is there any feedback on those projects, or are there any comments that the district should consider other projects as well? If so, can you please provide those comments either verbally or in the chat box as well? I'm just going to give it a minute. Okay. I know it's been a little less than a minute, but I'm not seeing any comments, so I am going to move forward with continuing to do the work that I mentioned in the previous slide as far as the types of projects the district will proceed in. Now, if at any time you still want to provide additional comments, reminder that we do have a website where you can complete the survey, and you can complete that during any time of the year. I do want to mention again that we're going to be moving to semi-annual meetings, with the next one scheduled in August 2025. And lastly, I do recommend you subscribe to our newsletters to get updated information on this program, grants in general, and just update that the district is working on it right now. Now we reached the end of our presentation. Marshall, I don't know if we wanted to open up for questions, or is there anything else anybody would like to add?
Would just like to point out that anyone can visit our website for any of the information that you described earlier at mdaqmd.ca.gov, and follow us on social media at MDAQMD on the various platforms for the latest updates on projects that we're completing, as well as for any feedback from residents.
Great job. Thank you. It was very informative. And thank you for allowing me to be part of it.
Thank you for participating. We appreciate it, Bridget.
Thanks, Jorge. Thanks, Marshall.